been so many places in my life and time. I've sung a lot of songs, I've made some bad rhymes. I've acted out my life in stages with 10,000 people watching. But we're alone now, and I'm singing this song to you. I know your image of me is what I hope to be. I treated you unkindly, but darling, can't you see? There's no one more important to me. Baby, can't you see through me?
Welcome everybody to the Dannelle Johnson Show. I thank you so much for coming out. We have a wonderful show this time. It's going to be the start of a mini-series, so we'll be talking about it ongoingly. So we're going to bring on powerful people who are going to discuss saving our youth, because this topic is so very much needed with the alarming rate of high school dropouts, with everything going on. Our children and our youth are our next generation. So we need to come together, both men and women, fathers and mothers, and community as a whole, to save our youth. So first we're going to start talking to the very honorable and wonderful Mr. Charles Barron. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Our New York City Councilman. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So I just want to let's just go off a script and just talk about, tell me a little bit about your history and what you do in your community.
Well, you know, as a young man, I started off in the Black Panther Party, being an angry young man, looking for a vehicle to express my anger. Rather than choosing a gang, I got down with the Panthers. Because if you're going to be angry and you're going to be a man about expressing your anger, any chump could beat another brother because they don't care.
I know that.
They don't care if we beat each other. But real men, real women, take it to where it belongs, to our oppressors. And that's what we have to do. Some brothers get bad with each other. They're angry. I don't have a job. I don't have this and that. Well, so what? I mean, I didn't always have a job.
That's right.
So go get the people who are denying you the job.
All right.
Not your brother. Don't be ripping me off. I'm just as broke as you are. So if you want to be a real man, I got some people y'all could get. You know, just take him down to Bloomberg. He got a lot of money.
That's
take
right.
him to Cuomo. He got a lot of power and is neglecting them and denying them their programs. So I'm trying to get our young people to get involved in the movement. See, one of the things that's missing in this generation, every generation needs a cultural revolution, a cultural movement, so they can know who they are, where they came from. We didn't institutionalize that in the 60s. We had it for a moment, you know, afros, dashikis, and Africa this, Africa that. But then, after a while, it died down, and we get a new generation coming up. So this kind of information is not out there. So if you don't love yourself, you can easily harm yourself and others, because when you look in the mirror, you don't see love, you don't see Africa, you don't see the first people on the planet, you don't see the people who built the pyramids, you don't see the people who gave the world mathematics and science and government and gave the world architect and medicine. You don't see that. And if you don't see that in yourself, then it's easily to take somebody else out that looks just like you.
Wow.
So we need
deep.
that kind of power. We need
That
that
is
kind
so
of power
deep.
in our youth.
That is so deep. And
When I get inside, when they asked me to run, they said, Charles, you know, we need somebody to run for city council out in East New York. I said, I may not be the best person, because I'll never be a politician. I'm not going to be a politician. I could win, but when I get in there, I ain't saluting no flag. I ain't wearing no shirt and tie. I ain't kissing no part of the anatomy I ought not be kissing. I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to bring it straight, hard, no chaser. I'm not taking no prisoners. And if that's what y'all want, I'll do it.
all right.
And you know, it's important for us to understand power. Power. See, it's about power. If you don't have any power, over the institutions that govern your life, whether it's the health institutions, employment institutions, the police, or whether it's any institution, housing, if white men in power control all of that, and you outside of that, you better do one or two things. You better either get the power or be able to influence people in power to make decisions in your best interest. If you're doing neither, you're doing nothing. You're doing nothing. Because they don't care about anything else but power. Power is the ability to make a decision in your best interest. I'm a city councilman. The city council has the power over passing a budget, and I have the power over land use. This is deep. If Donald Trump came into East New York and said he wanted to build a Trump Tower on Blake Avenue on city-owned property, he has to come see the Black Panther City Council. That's what he has to do. He has to come see the Black Panther City Council. And I'll tell him, no, you're fired. Like he fires somebody on TV. You're fired.
All right.
And I don't care how many billions he has, if my soul is straight, if I'm not for sale, then you can't do nothing to me about money. See, one of the things we have to do under capitalism, and that's why I like some of the hip-hop brothers like Tupac Shakur, I was very close with. His mother, Fannie Shakur, was in the Black Panther Party with me.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of rappers like Dead Prez. You know, these rappers, they into the revolution, into the movement. We can't get caught up into materialism, you know, how much you have in your pocket, or how many cars you have, or how much kind of clothes you got on. That's when capitalism got you. If you go there, you're nothing but a 21st century slave. I don't care if you have a mansion. I don't care if you have 10 cars. They got you because you're not a man.
Right.
When you die, all of that stuff, we're going to take your little car ride all over Brooklyn. Ain't going to tell you about it because you're dead.
Wow.
You can't bring it with you. We're going to take your mansion and everything else. Somebody else is going to be in it. The only thing that matters is what you do to help another brother or sister get through this life. That's the only thing that matters.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Dannelle Johnson Show. Again, we're turning back with the City Councilman Charles Barron. And now I wanted to introduce you to a guest that we just added to the panel, which is Minister Henry Muhammad from the Nation of Islam. Could you just give him a round of applause?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I always feel good when I got two strong men around me, you know, but we're going to bring on some positive sisters too, so we're going to let that marinate. All right, so Minister Henry, tell me, Nation of Islam, what do you do? Tell me about it and tell me how you're impacting the community.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you, Dannelle, for allowing me to be on your show, and it's an honor to be here and be among the audience. I'm Brother Henry Muhammad, most affectionately referred to. I'm a student minister in the Nation of Islam under the guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We are right now based in East New York. We have Muhammad Mosque 7C, which is offshoot of Muhammad Mosque number 7 in Harlem. We're on 202 Pennsylvania Avenue between Glenmore and Pickens Avenue, so we're right in Charles' backyard, you know, and we've been there since August of last year, and we feel real comfortable there because anywhere where our people are in a downtrodden condition due to the circumstances and conditions of their life is where we feel in the Nation of Islam we should be. Our motive is freedom, justice, and equality for our people, and separating their mindset from the mind of the enemy forces that have caused us to be in circumstances and conditions that cause us to make the wrong choices. So we have a lot of work to do. You know, East New York is number one in, I believe, gun violence, and Brownsville is number one in murder. So we love being there because the lower our condition is, the higher we'll rise. And that's how we believe. So we don't have no problem with that. Following a man like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is what builds up our faith in terms of looking at the example. You know, we're willing to walk into hell with a gasoline jacket on to save our people, and that's literal. Thank you.
Wonderful. And I know I'm not cutting you off, but I
No, it's
just
no problem.
because his background is Black Panther, as he said,
Right.
and your background is Nation of Islam. And I mean, I'm a little young, before that time. But I do remember
What
my
are you
history.
trying to say?
No. Y'all really great. But I know that in my history, because I love the Angela Davis. She was just a revolutionist.
Okay.
And back in the day, so I know that Black Panthers and Nation of Islam and even the Young Lords, and they marched hand in hand, even with Dr. Martin Luther King, with the Civil Rights Movement. And one thing I liked about the 60s that there was a movement, and the youth understood where they had to go, even in the Depression. What I want to know, and I'm going to turn to both of you, and I want both of you to act, the question is addressed to both of you.
Okay.
The movement, the Civil Rights Movement, do you feel that it's lost now with the youth or not? And if it is lost, what do you think we need to do to get the movement back so that the youth will be involved and be engaged?
Okay. Now, for me, let's just go a little bit of background. I'm in my 40s, so when the Black Panthers was moving, I was still Bruce Lee and all that other stuff in school, So, but the Black Power movement was what was birthing me because I was coming up as as a youth in the 70s. So the Black Power signs, the red, black, and green picks, and all that, I came up under that, and it was a village that was raising us up. You couldn't go down the block and be found with your friends cursing and carrying on, and the neighbor don't stick her head out the window and say, is that you talking like that? And not just chastise you from the window, come out there and smack you up and walk you up the block to your mother's house, and then tell your mother, and then you get a double behind whipping, and you just thinking the whole world is against you. But it was a village that was raising us. So I was coming on the back end of that. The Nation of Islam and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I didn't know anything about it at that time, but the atmosphere that was already created, I was growing up in. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was departing off the scene. The Black Panthers were kind of simmering down. Dope was hitting the scene real hard. Vietnam was just about to start to end, and they was bringing in good times and all this. So I'm, as a young 10 or 11-year-old, I'm looking at it from that vantage point, but at the same time, when I'm among our people, it was all about, our culture, So when we look fast forward up to now, in 2000, from my understanding and what I see, the civil rights movement played its part for the time that it needed to play its part. Now it's a matter of moving on into human rights because the enemy was at the root of civil rights. And when we look at it now, and we even, Malcolm told us about the Big Six. Now, I studied that way after Malcolm was off the scene, but thank God for recorded tapes and whatnot. The whole grassroots movement and those things that the civil rights movement was producing through Martin Luther King and others, you had an enemy, that was underneath all of that. See, and I'm trying not to be long-winded with this, but when Sister just said my background, I didn't float into no Nation of Islam. I came straight up out of the hood, Nostrand Avenue. I was one of them dudes on the corner. I grew up in a home with my mother and my father, but there's an institution in the house, there's an institution in the school, and there's an institution of the streets. And the institution of the streets challenge what you're being told in the household and challenge what you're being dealt with in the schools. And the institution of the church, all that gets challenged because when you get on those streets in that concrete jungle, then you're going to see the number runners, and you're going to see the hustlers, and you're going to see the dice shooters, and you're going to see all that stuff is not in the house.
Right.
So it challenges everything that you're being restricted with once you're out there and you have to deal with it. So in lieu of all of that, we're seeing that no one kicked down a door and said, look, y'all going to accept my civil rights movement. So for the civil rights movement to get any progress in a capitalistic society where we were brought over here in the holes of slave ship, there had to be an enemy that's going to capitalize off of it. So we see now that we did make progress to a measure and to a degree, but now it's to the point where we have to start dealing with human rights because the civil rights is under the civilization of someone else, and we have to produce our own culture and our own civilization.
All right. Very well done. So, Mr. Charles Barron.
I guess I'm the old man of the panel here.
You're the elder.
I'm actually 60 years old.
All right. You look good.
60
You look good.
years old. I think it's very important to understand with the minister said, the brother said, because when you make those connections, they did a powerful thing. It was a program called the COINTEL program, the Counterintelligence Program of the FBI. Every leader, the Nation of Islam was under surveillance. Malcolm X was under surveillance. Martin Luther King was under surveillance. Stokely Carmichael, Rap Brown. All of our movements, whether it was a cultural nationalist movement, where we believe culture, back to Africa, change your name, put your hair down, African name and all of that, or whether it was a revolutionary nationalist. We were socialists. I still am a socialist. I think capitalism is a fail. It will never work. And then some were in the civil rights, Black Power. So what J. Edgar Hoover did, got the Panthers fighting internally. So this is the thing we got to look out for, that internal battle. Because the movement out there now is hip hop, and they got them battling
Fighting.
internally. East Coast versus West Coast.
Right.
You know that was in the Panther Party?
Was it?
East Coast versus West Coast. Huey Newton was on the West Coast, Eldridge Cleaver was on the East Coast, and Panthers were battling each other because of letters that the FBI was sending on the other one stationary to each other.
Wow.
We were recruiting gang members. Gang members were coming into the movement, and they were putting down the drugs, putting down the guns, and getting very political. The Crips came out of a revolutionary movement, the Black Panther movement that came out of that, turned into something else. So every time they see us getting our youngsters, I had a leadership program called Dynamics of Leadership. I was teaching leadership, and a brother from the Latin Kings came out, King Tone. He came out, you know, Brother King Tone. He was trying to get the Latin Kings and the Bloods, and the Latin Kings were fighting. In East New York, some Bloods shot 2 Latin Kings.
Wow.
King Tone came out there with me. He said, we ain't doing this in our brother's district. I'm telling you, they had about 1,000 Latin Kings came out. We brought down the family members of the Bloods that did the shooting. The 2 brothers that got shot got on the stage and said, this one's on the house. Because we got to end this. It's not making sense. But you know what was interesting? After we did that, I was training them. We was trying to get them jobs and all of that stuff, Crips and Bloods, and working them. The police, all of a sudden, now when they're out there gang banging, the police didn't do nothing. They weren't out there arresting them too much. They kind of let them gang bang. Soon as they start marching with us against police brutality, as soon as they start getting gigs and joining the political movement, then all of a sudden they came down on the Latin Kings, took King Tone off. Now he's down for 10 more years, saying he was just got out and he's around somebody that had committed a crime. How could he not be if he's going to be around his brothers, you know? So, you know, they know what they're doing. Every time we try to bring some progress to our movement, they come with drugs. But we need young people like Little Bobby Hutton. Little Bobby Hutton was a 17-year-old Black Panther, first one to die. George Jackson had a brother named Jonathan Jackson. He went in there, tried to liberate his brother from prison. Little Hector Peterson, a 13-year-old in the South African movement. A 13-year-old died fighting against apartheid. See, that's the kind of youth we have to come up with so that they'll be get involved in the movement. Let's be some men.
All right. Well, we have a program from Red Hook Community, the community that I don't know if anyone know, I'm from Red Hook Community. I was born and raised in Red Hook Projects. Yes, born and raised there. I still live there. And my thing is, I wanted to impact my community as I blow up. So we blow up together, as Martin Lawrence say. So I want to bring up, I want to take some time for them to introduce themselves and give them an opportunity to address the panel with any questions or comments, concerns. And we just open the floor to you. Could you introduce yourself?
I'm Solomon Goodwin.
Yes, Solomon.
And
How
I
you
work
doing?
at the Red Hook Initiative. I am a dance teacher and a tutor. I work with middle school kids and I work with high school students as well.
Good for you.
Excellent.
And I'll let you introduce yourself and ask the question.
Hello, my name is
How
Maribeth
you doing?
White. I am an education advocate for the Red Hook Initiative, which means I kind of deal with all things related to youth and adult education in the Red Hook community that happens to come across my desk. I also teach a GED class for the Fifth Avenue Committee.
Wow.
And I recently did some work with the mayor's office that focused on youth violence prevention and uplifting grassroots organizations.
So how do you address what they were saying, and how do you address your work is very much needed, and I thank you and commend you both for coming out. What do you see that needs to be addressed in the youth services, and how do you feel, or if you differ from the panel with what they're saying in regard to the youth services?
I definitely agree with what the ideas that were presented, the opinions that were presented. Our issue that we deal with a lot is, number one, having the resources to serve the youth in our community. It's a nonprofit organization. It's small, it's grassroots, and we're always stretched thin. One unique thing about the Red Hook Initiative is that we pay our youth. They're our employees to participate in our programs. And as much as we would like to employ all 1,000 youth or however many they are in Red Hook, we can't. We don't have the resources. We don't have the space. We don't have the media coverage. We don't have the attention. And I know this is something that a lot of politicians say when you meet them. It's call me and I'll help you. And you call, you email, you show up, nothing happens. You know, so that's definitely something that we struggle with, and I think that's true in any grassroots organization, is actually getting that support from the politicians, from the government, things like that.
How do you feel about what she said?
Well, you know, two things. Number one, the young people in East New York, Andre Mitchell has a group called Man Up, Inc.
Yeah, I met him.
Right.
Really great person.
See, he was my partner out in East New York, connecting me to the youth. So I would do the political thing. Andre didn't have to call me up. I called him. And I made sure his programs got funded. And that we also said any developer that comes into East New York has to talk to Andre Mitchell about jobs. So when they start building new homes or renovating parks and all of that, I send them straight to Andre Mitchell. And we get our people, you know, worked up. We got some buildings in our East New York that have solar panels. And we made them teach our young people how to install solar panels, the 21st century energy source. So, you know, politicians will do as much as you make them do. If they don't call you, crash the office. Don't be polite. Don't say, look, you didn't call me. You know, get 20, 30 youth in front of their office and see how much they pay attention to you. You know, crash it. So you keep up the good work. And another thing y'all should consider doing. Every organization should have a political action wing. So you have somebody come down to City Hall, like have somebody that goes to City. Oh, y'all were there? Yeah, I was out there too.
They were out there marching.
Good.
They go to DC, they go to Albany, they go to
But
Detroit,
here's the other
wherever
thing.
they're needed.
Here's another thing. Run for office. See, you need to get some young people. I'm not saying necessarily you, but you need to get young people so you won't have to say what you're going to do for me. Do it for yourself. Because there's some 26-year-olds in the city council.
All right.
In the city council. So start thinking about taking power. Remember I was saying at the beginning of the program, you got to get that power, else if you can't influence it or have it, then it's going to be very, very difficult for you to get anything done. And there's a lot of money in New York City. They have a $65.5 billion city budget.
Wow.
New York City's budget is larger than every African country's budget, every Caribbean country's budget. New York City's budget is larger than 48 state budgets in the United States. And they're talking about they're broke. I want to be that kind of broke.
Right.
Well, we definitely we're gonna talk more with you, and we're gonna end this segment and bring on some powerful, the panel just gonna keep getting bigger, the conversations are just gonna keep flowing, and then after I bring all the panel on, I'm gonna turn to the audience, and I want you to get totally involved. They're here for you. We have him, and let's listen to him. We have the Minister Henry Muhammad. We have me, and we wanna really, really get involved. We're gonna talk. This is gonna be a really good discussion, so get loose, shake it off. And we'll bring you right back to the Dannelle Johnson Show. We're going to bring on another young lady coming up, and then after that, we'll bring on another young lady. And I say young because they're gorgeous. We're going to bring on Carmen Cologne. And so she's powerful. She's speaking. We have, she's going to talk. They're going to get culturally diverse. And then we're going to bring on Jewel Allison, and we're going to also bring on Miss Basha Riddick. and her services with the deacon